Welcome back, everyone, to Second Act, First Date, Over 40 and Awkward. This is episode number 16. And we are going to be doing a deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that I know a lot of you out there can relate to. It is dating after 40. It's kind of like suddenly the dating pool got a whole lot deeper. But the lifeguard decided to go home for the night. You sent us an article titled, Dating Got You Down. This might change everything.
Yeah.
And honestly, the title alone had me intrigued. So let's break this down together. I was really interested right away when the article talked about social media and unrealistic expectations these days. It feels like everyone on these apps is putting forward these like perfect versions of themselves. And then I start to feel like maybe I don't measure up.
It's true that comparison game can be brutal, especially when you're already feeling a bit vulnerable just navigating the whole dating scene. It really can.
Absolutely. I remember this one date I went on. This guy spent the whole time talking about his ex-girlfriend, who was, surprise, surprise, a yoga instructor and Instagram influencer. I mean, where do you even go from there?
Oh, I totally get it. That's a perfect example of how those unrealistic expectations can just totally tank a date before it even really begins.
I know, right? It was like he was looking for a carbon copy of someone else instead of actually trying to get to know me
Yeah.
for who I am.
And that's exactly where I think this article's focus on self-love is so important. It really argues that building a strong sense of self-worth is like the foundation for being able to attract healthy and fulfilling relationships.
So it's less about changing yourself to fit someone else's idea of perfect and more about owning your own awesomeness.
Exactly.
I love that.
One thing the article suggests is to set aside time for self-care rituals. Whether that's a nice long bath or a walk in nature or even just curling up with a good book, these little rituals can really help you recharge and feel more confident just in yourself.
That's such a good reminder. We often get so caught up trying to impress other people that we forget to take care of ourselves. And to be honest, who wants to date someone who doesn't even enjoy their own company?
Exactly. That's a great point. Another thing the article dives into is the idea of understanding your dating patterns.
Okay, so what does that even mean, dating patterns?
Think about it this way. Do you always find yourself drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable? Or maybe you always seem to go for the quote-unquote bad boy type. These patterns can actually reveal a lot about our own beliefs and our fears deep down.
So it's not just about who we're swiping right on, it's about why we're swiping right?
Exactly. The article suggests taking some time to reflect on your past relationships. Really ask yourself, what drew you to those partners in the first place? What were the common threads between them? And maybe even more importantly, were those relationships ultimately fulfilling for you?
This is starting to sound a little bit like therapy, but in a good way.
I think it's all about self-awareness, right? Once you understand your patterns, you can start to break free from them. And then you're making more conscious choices in your dating life.
Okay, so I'm getting the feeling that this article is less about finding the one and more about finding yourself.
I think that's a great way to put it. And speaking of finding yourself, the article also talks about how important it is to expand your social circles.
So, full disclosure, I'm a bit of an introvert,
Mm-hmm.
and the thought of putting myself out there just to meet people can be a little bit daunting for me.
I hear that. And you don't have to suddenly become a social butterfly or anything. Expanding your social circle doesn't have to mean going to tons of parties or anything like that. The article actually suggests finding activities that you genuinely enjoy, like taking a class or joining a book club, or maybe even volunteering for a cause you really care about.
So it's more about finding people who share your interests and values.
Exactly. And the more you're exposed to new people and new experiences, the better your chances of meeting someone who really clicks with you.
This actually reminds me of something I wanted to mention. We have a great community of people over on our website, secondactfirstdatepodcast.com. It's really a safe and supportive space to connect with other listeners. And you can share your dating experiences and get advice.
It's a fantastic resource for anyone who's feeling a little bit lost or overwhelmed in their dating journey.
It really is. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. But coming back to the deep dive, I'm really curious about what the article says about communication in dating. We've all had those dates where the conversation just feels like pulling teeth, right?
Ugh, tell me about it. The article really highlights the importance of active listening, which means it's not just about waiting for your turn to talk, but actually trying to really engage with what the other person is saying.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of zoning out sometimes, especially if the date isn't going so well. Do you have any tips for how to stay present and attentive?
Well, one technique that the article suggests is to try reflecting back what your date is saying. It shows that you're not just hearing them, but actually understanding and processing their words. Like, for example, you could say something like, "It sounds like that trip to Italy really had a big impact on you."
Ooh, I like that. It's like you showing them that you're actually paying attention, not just waiting to talk about your cat collection or something.
Exactly. And it kind of encourages them to open up even more. The article also emphasizes the importance of being assertive and setting
This
boundaries.
is where I struggle. I don't want to come across as too demanding or high maintenance.
Oh, I totally get that. But the article talks about it as an act of self-respect, not selfishness. It's about communicating your needs and expectations in a clear and respectful way.
Okay, so how do you suggest actually going about setting those boundaries? Is there like a right way to do it?
The article recommends using I statements. It's a way to express your feelings without placing blame or accusing the other person. So, for example, instead of saying you're always late, you could say, "I feel disrespected when I'm kept waiting."
Ah, that makes so much sense. It's like taking ownership of your emotions instead of making it their fault.
Exactly. And it opens up a space for you to have a dialogue and to really understand each other better. And another thing the article encourages us to think about is the questions that we ask on dates.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely been guilty of sticking to just the surface level stuff.
Hmm.
Work, hobbies, favorite movies, just the usual.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into those same old conversational routines. But the article challenges us to ask questions that can really spark a genuine connection with someone. Think about what truly matters to you in a partner. What are their values? What are they passionate about? What kind of future are they hoping to build for themselves?
So it's about going beyond the small talk and getting to the heart of who someone really is.
Exactly. And it can be as simple as asking, what are you most passionate about these days? Or what's something you're really looking forward to in the future?
I love those questions. They're really open-ended and inviting, and I think they reveal a lot about a person's priorities and aspirations.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to share your own passions and dreams too. Authenticity really breeds authenticity.
So again, it's not about trying to impress the other person. It's about being your genuine, awesome self.
Exactly. I know we've been focusing a lot on the emotional and psychological sides of dating, but the article also has some practical tips for navigating the world of online dating.
Online dating, right. It's the land of filtered selfies and vague bios. So where do we even begin with that?
Good question. Well, the article really stresses the importance of creating an authentic profile. Instead of trying to be someone you're not, really highlight what makes you unique and interesting.
So no more pretending to be a part-time model and world traveler when you actually spend most of your time binge-watching Netflix in your PJs.
Uh-huh, exactly. Be honest, be yourself, and just let your personality shine through.
Okay, that's good advice for the profile itself. But what about actually communicating with people online? All that swiping and messaging can feel like a full-time job.
It can, but the article emphasizes quality over quantity when it comes to online dating. Instead of mindlessly swiping through a ton of profiles, really take the time to read people's bios, look at their photos, and try to identify people that you genuinely feel a connection with.
So it's more about being intentional and selective
Hmm.
and not just trying to cast the widest net possible.
Exactly. And when you do message someone, try to go beyond the generic, "Hey, how are you?"
Yeah.
Ask them a question about something specific from their profile, or maybe share something about yourself that connects to their interests.
That makes so much sense. It's like actually starting a conversation, not just sending a notification.
Exactly. And once you've made a connection, don't be afraid to suggest meeting up in person. The article emphasizes that real connection happens face to face.
This whole conversation has been so insightful. I honestly, when I first picked this article, I was feeling kind of down about the whole dating scene. But now I'm actually feeling kind of optimistic.
I'm glad to hear that. I think one of the big takeaways from this article and our conversation is that dating after 40 can actually be a really rewarding experience.
It's like that saying, you can't find happiness by looking for it, but it will find you when you least expect it.
That's a good one. It's a time for rediscovering yourself, exploring new things, and connecting with people in a deeper, more authentic way.
Maybe it's not about finding the one, but more about just enjoying the journey and seeing who you meet along the way.
I think so. And as you go on that journey, just remember to be kind to yourself. Dating has its ups and downs, for sure, but approaching it with a positive mindset and a willingness to learn can really make all the difference.
Absolutely. And if you need a little help along the way, make sure to visit our website, secondactfirstdatepodcast.com. We have tons of resources there, articles, and a really great community of people who are on this journey with you.
It's a really safe and supportive place to share your experiences, ask questions, and get advice from other people who've been there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into dating after 40. We hope you've learned some valuable insights and feel empowered to embrace this exciting new chapter of your life. Remember, it's never too late to find love and build those meaningful connections.
And remember to have fun along the way.
And as always, thanks for listening to Second Act First Date, Over 40 and Awkward. Don't forget to visit secondactfirstdatepodcast.com for more resources and to connect with our amazing community of listeners. Until next time, happy dating.
Yeah, and it encourages them to kind of open up even more, too. The article also talks about the importance of being assertive and setting boundaries.
Okay, see, that's where I always struggle. I never want to come across as too demanding or like high maintenance. You know what I mean?
Oh, I totally get that. But the article actually presents it as an act of self-respect, not as being selfish. It's
Right.
more about communicating your needs and your expectations clearly and respectfully to the other person.
So how do you suggest going about setting those boundaries? Like, is there a right way to do it?
Well, the article suggests using I statements. It's a way of expressing how you feel without blaming or accusing the other person, which can make things defensive. For example, instead of saying you're always late, try saying, I feel disrespected when I'm kept waiting.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's like you're taking responsibility for your own emotions instead of putting it all on them.
Exactly. And it just creates a much better space for you to talk things out and understand each other better. Another thing the article encourages us to think about is the types of questions we ask on dates.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely been guilty of just sticking to the surface level stuff like, work, hobbies, favorite movies, just the basics.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into those conversational ruts, but the article challenges us to ask questions that spark a genuine connection with the other person. And to do that, you have to think about what truly matters to you in a partner. What are their values? What are their passions? What kind of future do they want to build?
So it's less about just getting to know them on a basic level and more about getting to the heart of who they really are.
Exactly. And, sometimes it can be as simple as asking, what are you most passionate about these days? Or what's something you're really looking forward to in the future?
I love those questions. They're so open-ended and inviting, and I think they can tell you a lot about someone's priorities and aspirations.
Absolutely. And on that note, don't be afraid to share your own passions and dreams as well. Authenticity really does breed authenticity.
So it's not about trying to impress them. It's about being your genuine self and hoping they appreciate that.
I think so. So far we've been focusing a lot on the emotional and psychological sides of dating. But this article also has some really practical tips for dealing with the world of online dating.
Oh, online dating. That's a whole other beast. It's the land of filtered selfies and bios that tell you nothing. Where do you even begin with that?
It can be overwhelming, for sure, but the article really stresses the importance of creating an authentic profile. Don't try to be someone you're not. Instead, just highlight what makes you unique and interesting as a person.
So no more pretending to be a part-time model and world traveler when you actually spend most of your time binge-watching Netflix in your pajamas.
Haha, exactly. Just be honest, be yourself, and let your personality shine through.
Okay, that's good advice for the profile itself. But what about the actual communication part of online dating? All that swiping and messaging can feel like a full-time job sometimes.
It really can. But the article emphasizes that quality is more important than quantity when it comes to online dating. So instead of just mindlessly swiping through tons of profiles, take your time. Read people's bios, actually look at their pictures, and try to find people that you genuinely feel like you might connect with.
So it's more about being intentional and selective, not just trying to get as many matches as possible.
Exactly. And then when you do message someone, try to move beyond just a generic, hey, how are you? Ask them a question about something you saw in their profile, or share something about yourself that connects with their interests.
Ah, I get it. It's about starting an actual conversation, not just sending a notification.
Exactly. And once you've made a connection with someone, don't be afraid to suggest meeting up in person. The article reminds us that real connection happens when you're face to face.
This whole conversation has honestly been so insightful. When I first picked this article, I was feeling kind of down about the whole dating scene. But now I'm actually feeling optimistic.
That's great to hear. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this article and our conversation is that dating after 40 can actually be a really enriching and rewarding experience.
It's like that saying, you can't find happiness by looking for it, but it will find you when you least expect it.
I love that saying. This is a time for rediscovering yourself, exploring new possibilities, and connecting with people in a deeper, more authentic way.
Yeah, maybe it's not about finding the one as much as it is about enjoying the journey and seeing who you meet along the way.
I think you're right. And as you go on that journey, remember to be kind to yourself. Dating has its ups and downs, but if you approach it with a positive mindset and a willingness to learn, it can make all the difference.
That's so true. And if you need a little extra support along the way, don't forget to check out our website, secondactfirstdatepodcast.com. We have tons of resources there, articles, and a wonderful community of people who are going through the same things you are.
It's a safe and supportive space where you can share your experiences, ask questions, and get advice from people who understand what you're going through.
It really is. Now, there's one more aspect of dating that we haven't talked about yet, and it can be kind of a tough one. Letting go.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
What does letting go even look like in the context of dating?
It's about recognizing when a relationship or even just a certain dating situation is no longer serving you. Maybe you're having the same arguments over and over, or maybe you're just not feeling that spark anymore.
So it's about having the wisdom to walk away, even when it's hard.
Exactly. The article emphasizes that letting go isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually an act of self-love and empowerment. It frees you up to pursue connections that are truly fulfilling.
That's a powerful message. But I imagine that letting go can be a really emotional process. Do you have any advice for navigating that?
I think it can be really hard. And a lot of us have probably held on to relationships longer than we should have, just hoping that things would change.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. More than once, honestly.
Well, the article suggests allowing yourself to feel all of the emotions that come with letting go. The sadness, the anger, even the relief. Don't try to suppress those feelings, just let yourself experience them.
So it's okay to acknowledge the hurt, but also recognize that you deserve a relationship that makes you happy, not one that brings constant drama.
Exactly. And sometimes it can be really helpful to reach out for support during those times, talking to friends, family, or maybe even a therapist.
Yeah, it's like having a whole cheerleading squad reminding you of how awesome you are.
And as you heal and start to move on, try to remember the lessons you've learned from those past experiences.
Okay, so it's not just about letting go, it's about learning from those relationships and growing as a person, even the ones that didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can use that knowledge to make better choices in the future.
I love that.
Those lessons become really valuable tools as you start to explore new connections. They can help you spot red flags sooner, set healthier boundaries, and ultimately choose partners who are a better fit for you.
You know, this whole conversation has been so eye-opening. When I first read this article, I was feeling pretty discouraged about dating, but now I actually feel a sense of hope.
I'm so glad to hear that. I think one of the key takeaways from this article and our conversation today is that dating after 40 doesn't have to be a negative experience. It can actually be really fulfilling.
It's like that saying, you can't find happiness by looking for it, but it often finds you when you least expect it.
That's so true. It's a time for rediscovering yourself, exploring what you really want, and connecting with people in a deeper, more authentic way.
Yeah, maybe it's not about finding the one. Maybe it's more about enjoying the journey and appreciating the people you meet along the way.
I think you're right. And as you go on that journey, just remember to be kind to yourself. Dating has its ups and downs, that's for sure. But approaching it with a positive attitude and a willingness to learn can make the whole experience so much better.
It really can. And if you're looking for some extra support or guidance, don't forget to visit our website, secondactfirstdatepodcast.com. We have a ton of great resources there, including articles and a forum where you can connect with other people who are going through the same thing.
It's a wonderful community of people who are navigating this journey together.
It really is. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into dating after 40. We hope you found this conversation helpful and feel more confident about taking on the dating world. Remember, it's never too late to find love and create those meaningful connections.
And don't forget to have some fun along the way.
That's important. As always, thank you so much for listening to Second Act First Date, Over 40 and Awkward. Don't forget to visit secondactfirstdatepodcast.com for more resources and to connect with our amazing community. Until next time, happy dating.